Space Marine aggressors are Marines wrapped in gravis armor, equipped with power fists and special weaponry mounted to said power fists, usually sent after heavily armored and armed enemies that are in tough fortifications. They're a general purpose unit for the Space Marines. Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and today we are covering the aggressors of the Space Marines from their codex, of course. So aggressors come in at 120 points for 3 or 240 points for 6. They move 5 inches, they're toughness 6, with a 3+ save, 3 wounds, leadership 6+, and OC 1, so the standard gravis stat line, though at this price point they are very squishy. In terms of ranged weapons, the Bolt Storm gauntlets have twin linked. They're 18-inch range with 3 attacks that hit on 3s, strength 4, AP 0, and damage 1, so fairly good at killing light infantry. The Flamestorm gauntlets are twin ignores cover and torrent. They are 12-inch range with d6 plus 1 attacks with strength 4, AP 0, and damage 1, so again, very good at cooking light infantry. And the Fragstorm launchers come with the Bolt Storms, and they are blast 18-inch range with d6 attacks that hit on 3s at strength 4, AP 0, and damage 1. Again, just more anti-light infantry firepower. In terms of melee weapons, the Twin Power Fists are 3 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, AP 2, and damage 2, so general purpose enough, though their attack count is a little bit low. In terms of abilities, Close Quarters Firepower is the main one. It's each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack by targeting the closest eligible target, you improve the AP of that attack by 1, making them far more effective against things like Space Marines and armored infantry in general. The unit comp is fairly standard, 1 sergeant, 2 to 5 aggressors, everyone has a Flamestorm Gauntlet and Twin Power Fists, they have infantry and gravis, and every model may replace their Flamestorm Gauntlets with Boltstorm and Fragstorm launchers, which are decent enough trade-off if you're using something like lethal hits, but the Flamestorm have their place in certain attachments. In terms of buff options, Captain and Gravis gives you discounted stratagems, which is very nice, and his own damage is very good, and can benefit a lot from the damage combos that these guys are at the center of. In terms of Biologist, the lethal hits is a nice buff, especially with the Boltstorm Gauntlets and their melee, and as their melee is decent enough, it's not unreasonable that you can get the bonus 9 OC from the Biologist. Torgaradon is just a certified monster when it comes to hunting heavy armor, so he does make a good complement to the general anti-infantryness of the aggressors, and he does benefit from their special rule as well. Ironfather Phyros is not really worth it with these guys in my opinion, mainly because they aren't tough enough to justify having the Feel No Pain, as they're just insanely expensive per model, which is why they're so squishy. Marneus Calgar brings effectively a full squad's worth of melee, and it gives them a lot of extra speed thanks to Advance and Charge. If you're looking for pure power and speed without having to invest in something like a Land Raider, Marneus Calgar is probably your go-to, just because, again, his melee is so dominant, and the Advance and Charge is very, very nice. I'd say all of these except Ironfather Phyros definitely have a solid reason to be led with these guys, and it just depends on how you are running them. In terms of transports, the Land Raiders, of course, come to mind. The Standard offers a nice complement of anti-tank firepower, but you can't bring a character if you bring a full-size squad, and the Redeemer is the priciest, but you can bring a character along with a full squad, and its damage output is definitely very nice. The Crusader is the cheapest and allows a full suit of Gravis Armored Marines, so 6 Marines and 2 characters, though its own damage only doubles down on what the aggressors are already good at. And the Repulsor, I'd say, is less useful for these guys, thanks to its lack of an assault ramp, and these guys need to be fighting and shooting to be making the most of themselves, as they're very, very expensive. Moving on to detachments, Gladius gives you Advance and Shoot and Charge, which is very good, and if you wanted to, you could use Storm of Fire. The Anvil Siege Force isn't the most useful for them, as they generally want to be on the move, and they're not tough enough to weather heavy anti-enemy fire, so they may die if they end up just standing still to be more accurate, though you could get the 5+ criticals, which could be nice. Firestorm gives you extra strength, which is great on both weapons, and of course Massed Twin-Linked Flamers is a recipe for success with the Dev Wound stratagem, even if you don't have Vulcan around. Stormlance gives you Advance and Charge, which is pretty good if you're just trying to use them as a melee unit, and you can give them Assault for a command point, which you could get for free, with a Captain, which could definitely be useful. Vanguard gives you a little bit of extra durability thanks to cover, but given their very short-ranged weapons and nature of wanting to be up in the enemy's face, they generally won't have that buff up for more than maybe 1 or 2 turns at best. And then they aren't veterans and they don't have an access to a Psyker, so they don't get anything from First Company or Librarius. Moving on to the Divergent chapters, they don't have Deathwing or Ravenwing for the Dark Angels, so they don't really get anything there. Black Templars can give them a Feel No Pain or Invulnerable save, which are both very, very good, and any melee buff on these guys isn't just in general great. Whether it's lethal, sustained, anti-psyker, they all go a very long way. Blood Angels gives them that juicy, plus strength and attacks, which brings them up to strength 10 and 4 attacks, and they'll be very effective at punching the tar out of whatever may be in their way, which is very, very useful. Space Wolves gives you a Feel No Pain, which could be very handy just to keep them in the fight a little bit longer, and same with the Black Templars, any damage buffs they get are very much appreciated just to make sure they are hitting as hard as an aggressor can. In terms of competition, Terminators come to mind as a slow-moving, heavily armored unit with a power fist. If you're looking for someone to be very general purpose and be able to take a beating, the Terminators do their job very well, as while they don't have Twin Linked, they do get +1 to hit against the Oath moment as some consolation, and generally they fulfill a very similar role, but the Aggressors definitely have a higher ceiling and are better suited for things like big combos, with multiple characters, enhancements, and stratagems working in tow, where Terminators are just more solid on their own, and also are significantly tougher, thanks to their invulnerable save and 2+ save innately, makes them just insanely more tough, and given how much cheaper they are, about 6 points cheaper than Aggressors, they definitely do have a healthy leg up, in my opinion. Blade Guard and their equivalents are faster and more dangerous than the Aggressors, but they tend to have little, if any, actual range damage, which definitely is something very important to the Aggressors. And I'd say the Blade Guard especially completely outperform the Aggressors in terms of durability, though the Inner Circle are a bit more squishy. Points-wise, they're probably still a little tougher than Aggressors, if not the same toughness, but again, for cheaper. Out of these, though, again, Aggressors still very much have a place because of their natural affinity for being used as a combo end piece, just to apply as many buffs to, thanks to their good shooting and decent melee. Aggressors are a pretty surprising unit, in my opinion. All of their attributes are merely okay to flat-out mediocre, in my opinion, but they seem to consistently make something good. Even with Fire Discipline getting nerfed into the ground, there are still general uses and combos you can do with them. They definitely have an interesting role in that they seem like they would be mainly a melee unit, but they actually tend to do more damage at range, just thanks to the higher amount of attacks and more buffs that can be applied, but that doesn't mean they're slouches in melee. More so just they're held back by their lack of attacks. And they are very, very squishy. They are extremely vulnerable to things like plasma guns, autocannons, battle cannons, and just about any weapon with decent strength. All but the smallest arms are very threatening to these guys. Their lack of invulnerable means they really suffer from anything with high AP as well. So treat them more like a scalpel rather than a hammer. If they just waddle at the enemy, they will be blown to pieces before they reach anything of value. So if you give them something like a Land Raider, just make sure you get it in the right position before they jump out and unleash hellfire upon their enemies. Depending on loadout, I think it's pretty much up to the detachment and how you plan to use them and what buffs you're applying. But I think both easily have a place. Again, Firestorm for Flamers, Bolt Storms for Anvil Siege Force. Anyways, I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.